I would like to now invite Amjad Ali. Amjad Ali is our face-to-face presenter speaker. He is the head of IT at a well-known, a leading construction contracting company, Al Ansari, and they also have other businesses. Amjad Ali will be presenting on big data and predictive analytics, and he'll give us some use cases. Over to you, Amjad.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amjad Ali, and I'm heading IT department of Al Ansari group. And today I'm here to discuss the big data and advanced analytics from the introduction perspective, because this is Oman's first big data and analytics seminar. And back in 2017, I remember when I discussed about big data and advanced analytics. At that time, we did not have many people to discuss on this or to understand on this. So we have heard from the government sector, private sector, public sector, and private sector is still resistant to adopt to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. But of course, there will be no excuse. We have to help the organizations to move to the fourth industrial revolution. There is a gap that needs to be filled. So this will be an introductory presentation which will help every one of us who is present here and who is watching online. So I'll be giving an introduction to the big data and how the big data is defined, and the timelines, technology landscape, analysis and analytics, and difference between them and some use cases. And at the end of course, session, we will be having questions and answers. So this is for IT professionals, engineers, entrepreneurs, government and regulatory bodies, academicians, and researchers, and even students. So students can also take the benefit. If they are not here, they are watching online, or in future, they can see it. So how data is defined today, that data is the new oil. Data is just a crude oil. It is valuable, but unrefined cannot really be used. So this was the definition of the big data, or the data, how the data is the new oil. But the big data is in fact the fuel for the industry 4.0. We have heard about industry 4.0, that how it can benefit, how the big data can benefit. But let me ask you a question. How many of you are having 2 smart devices right now? Of course, everyone has one, but how many of you have 2? And how many of you have 3? We can see there are people having 3 mobile devices also. And in fact, if I ask how many of you are having no mobile device, of course, everyone has it. And how many of you have fitness trackers? There are few, but of course, there will be many people who will be having the fitness trackers. And everybody right now is having at least 1 or more social media accounts as well. And how many of you are having smart home solutions at their homes? Of course, I do have, and there is one more hand raised. And this is why we are talking about the big data. Right now, 6.4 billion users are connected, user devices are connected. And in 2022, in fact, 6.2 billion user devices will be connected. And most of these devices, laptop, desktops, or tablets are there, but most of the devices are smartphones. And what these smartphones are doing? These smartphones are generating the data. And in fact, every object on this earth is generating the data. And we need to capture that data through the sensors. In fact, the tree, seeds, the soil, they are also generating the data. And these data is being captured to take the benefit, to give the benefit to the plantation, to agriculture sector as well. So as you can see right now, in 2020, 30 billion devices were connected. I'm not talking about the mobile devices, but 30 billion devices are connected. And in next 2050, in year 2050, more than 100 billion devices will be connected, which includes sensors, which includes smart devices, which includes all the connected devices. And what these devices are doing, if I refer to my 2017 presentation, where I mentioned that these devices are generating unstructured data. And if I move forward, the market share since then of Hadoop and big data has increased to 99.3 billion US dollars. It was back then 17.1. So you can see how fast it has grown, but where it is moving. If you see in 2021, we are here, this much data has been generated, but see in next 10 years, how much more data we are going to generate. That's where we are creating the structured and unstructured data. And what is this unstructured data? The images, videos, which we have seen in yesterday's presentations and today's presentation as well. So what are these big data sources? The major big data source right now is the social. Your social media accounts, your social data, and then the machine data, and lastly, the transactional data, which is structured, but which is contributing very small portion, which is just 20%, and 80% is unstructured data. So we are the major source of this data. If you see in 2021, 4.72 billion internet population is there. These many people are connected to internet right now, out of 7 billion, I guess. And in 2021, right now, the moment I will skip this slide, we will be having 1.6 million people who did shopping online within this 1 minute. And how many, you can see 2 million posts are there, 3 million images will be sent on image URL, and 69 million messages are sent on WhatsApp and Messenger. And if you see all this, people are really generating the data in this 1 minute. And not only social data, these machines are also generating the data. Your smartphones, connected devices, fitness trackers, all these devices are generating the data as of now. And IoTs or industrial IoTs, these are also generating the data. And you can see the planes, a standard Boeing 737, when it generates actually 20 terabytes of data when it flies from one destination to another. And you can see if it is a round trip and 6 days in a week and then 365 days in a year, this much in 2026 total data generated by the plane will be 98 billion GB. So where this data is going to be stored? And not only this, this large Hadron Collider, which is rotating around in a 25-kilometer circumference, this is also generating large amount of data. You can get the details of this, that they were facing a lot of challenges in storing, in processing the data. So if you see right now in 2020, we have generated 44 zettabytes or 44,000 exabytes of data. In next 5 years, we will be generating 463 exabytes of data every day. So this is the volume of data that we are going to generate and the velocity of the data. And if you see the statistics, that 208 billion US dollars is the market right now, and it will increase to 684 billion by 2030, next 10 years only. That's why we are all here discussing about the big data. So how do we define the big data? Gartner gave its definition back in 2012, that the volume, high velocity, and high variety of the data is in fact the big data, and which needs advanced processing, advanced computational, and it helps decision making as well as process optimization. They gave this definition, process optimization, back in 2012, but right now the definition is changed to process automation. So it's not about the optimization anymore, it's about the automation. There are various characteristics, 10 V's are there: volume, velocity, variety. Of course, the value is the most important aspect, because we have huge amount of data, but what that data is going to do with us. Is it really going to help us? Does it have the value? Value not in terms of money, but value in terms of the benefits to individual, to business, to economy, to society. So big data is not new. It has been existing in the dictionary word back in 1940s. So information explosion was the word that was used, which means that data was increasing very fast. We started writing 3000 before Christ. You started using the data, writing the data on the trees and stones. So data was definitely existing there. But major challenge was faced by the US when they did the census, and it was very difficult to store that data. Back in 1999, when the internet was invented, we started digitalizing all the information that we had, the books and all this, and we thought that we are done. But it was not done, in fact. So everyone in 2000 started producing the data. We were earlier consuming the data, then back in 2000, we started producing the data, and internet grew and social media came into existence back in 2006. And then there was again increase in unstructured data. If we see 2016 timelines, big data continuously grew. So annual growth was 34%, and GPU, CPU had improved the performance of your computers. And then movement to the cloud in 2017. And then cloud became more popular in 2018, blockchain and all these technologies, and robots started speaking because of the big data. So big data became the source for artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other related technologies. So all these industry 4.0 related technologies. So big data became fuel to the artificial intelligence in 2019. So these were the buzzwords or trendy topics or latest trends back in 2019. Skill shift, again, from the ordinary information technology to data science, and then demand for the data scientists really increased back in 2019. Kubernetes in the cloud infrastructure, and cloud was only the way forward, and 5G technology. This all was the driving force behind the big data. And in fact, people thought that when industry 4.0 will come, robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they will kill the jobs. In fact, they created more jobs. 2.72 million data science jobs are available in 2020. And continuous and real-time analytics has improved, data ops, and all these terms have started. So digital transformation is the key aspect in 2020. Because of the COVID-19, world turned upside down, and we saw a digital transformation started accelerating. And that's where the big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all related technologies have started emerging very fast. We did not expect that this is going to happen, but it happened very fast. And in 2021, we are adopting the hybrid cloud. Hadoop is again rocking. Hadoop is the main technology behind the big data, and predictive analytics is on rise, and data ops as a service. And at the same time, low-code platforms are also emerging right now, which are having integrated artificial intelligence and machine learning. Because I am from the private sector. In private sector, most of the companies are mainly focusing on implementation of ERP, and from there, the business intelligence. But how to implement AI and ML in businesses, low-code platform has answer to that. So some practical benefits, we have already seen that how big data is going to help businesses, private sector, public sector, healthcare. So these are some of the examples how big data is helping in all the industrial, all the sectors, be it retail, banking, finance, manufacturing, and healthcare. And some of these are being implemented also here. For example, banks in Oman have implemented predictive analytics, where they are able to detect the credit card fraud before it happens. So that has already been implemented. And fraud detection, of course, at the same time, there are many firewalls and security systems which are predicting any attack before it happens. I will not go through the list. Of course, there is a lot of information available, and we have already seen it. always the concern of the businesses is that whether these projects, data science projects, are going to add any value to our business or not. So here we can see that the productivity increase and the sale increase can be seen in the retail sector also, in the construction sector also it can be seen, in consulting sector also it can be seen. In telecommunication sector it is seen more less, but in fact it must be more because they are the data-driven company. Now, if we see the big data steps involved, what is included in big data? So we are actually collecting, first of all, we need to collect the data, we need to refine the data, then we need to store the data, after that we need to present the data, or we need to then visualize the data. So we need to have these steps involved in order to implement any big data platform. And if we see, there are various platforms. I think this animation is not working, but anyways, here we have the processing layer, acquisition layer, and then presentation layer and analysis layer. So these are all layers from the big data landscape. Hadoop is the major component or major technology behind the big data. And if we see, Hadoop had always remained there since the big data became a subject. Since then till now, Hadoop is rocking. And it is an open source architecture which is available publicly. Anyone can access it. Means I started using it when there was no platform, a big data platform publicly available. So it is flexible, scalable, and free. Now, what Hadoop is using its own file system, HDFS, and MapReduce. What is MapReduce? MapReduce was the algorithm which Google initially started using. The Google search engine was using the MapReduce algorithm, and they made it public. But right now, Google is not using MapReduce, but there are other companies who have started using MapReduce. There are some commercial applications: Cloudera, Spark, Databricks, Hive, and R. R is a programming language for big data. Then, of course, these are all the technologies, but is there any platform available so that any company can buy that platform and start taking the benefits from the big data? Of course, there are hardware platforms also available, which are helping you to take the data, query the data, and store the data, and then visualize the data. Of course, this all data is structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. Structured data is definitely not a big challenge because the companies or organizations, they have already been using it for many years. But the challenge was with semi-structured data and unstructured data. So of course, platform should help us to acquire all that data and bring that into a data lake. And after that, we present that into line of business applications. As we can see that right now, all the apps, most of the apps, I must say, these are the data-driven apps. So the data earlier was coming from the app-driven data, but now we are using the data-driven apps where we can just download the app and it gives us the analysis directly from the cloud. Ocean Store 9000 back in 2017, they had this hardware. Huawei had this hardware, which can be acquired and implemented within the organization. But we must talk about the cloud technologies, in fact, because it becomes very challenging for any organization, be it a public sector or private sector, to take the benefit from this and implement this within the premises. Because why to reinvent the wheel if the technology is already available? So Big Data by Microsoft is there, which is helping us to take the data from all the three major sources: structured, unstructured, and semi-structured, by Microsoft on Azure. And Microsoft has Microsoft R. Now they have changed its name to Microsoft Machine Learning Platform. AWS, of course, we are talking about these technologies. We may be able to adopt it or we may not be able to adopt it, but the local cloud vendors should really think about either having a consortium or having an integration with their platform to help us to get that platform. So we have S3 bucket on AWS cloud, where we can store our data. Then through EMR, which is Elastic MapReduce. As I told you, MapReduce was earlier used by Google. They are also using MapReduce. So they will, the MapReduce will, this algorithm will actually convert that data into meaningful data, and then will store back into S3 cloud. From there, we can utilize it in any other platform, or we can use the Redshift, and then we can get the quick insights from the AWS cloud itself. So AWS has real-time data also, which it can stream and which can analyze. Similarly, Google Cloud Platform also has the 3 layers where it can acquire the data and then store the data, and then you can analyze the data using different layers, different applications. So visualization or reporting, or even converting that into Google Sheets, which is already available. So we have talked about a lot of data being stored right now, or a lot of data being generated. So if we store all the world's data right now, we will need a geographical location. Half of Oman we will need to store all these servers to store the data. But the research which is going on right now, if we combine all the 90,000 floppy disks data, of course, I'm from the age where floppy disks are being used. So if we store 90,000 floppy disks, we can store that into a smartphone. But what about the big data which is being generated right now, where it can be stored? Of course, we need huge storage equipment to store that data. Cloud storage, like AWS, has many data centers spread across, cities. But nature has gifted us something called DNA, which you must have heard about it, that DNA structure is being used to store the data, where 1 gram of DNA can store the world's entire data. So it is already in the research phase. In 2017 also, I mentioned the same thing, but still the researchers or the developers are able to store the data. So DNA storage will be able to help us to store the data. And you can see that if we need hard drives of this much to store the data, so world data can be stored in a 1 teaspoon size of the data. So this is how the structure of our genome is working. Our DNA is there. So DNA code is decoded into 1s and 0s, and from there it gets back into the data in the digital format. So this is how the 1s, 0s are stored in ATGC format, and it's a self referential mechanism. So if we see the current storage devices that we are having, these are not reliable in a sense that disks can be rotated maximum for 3 to 5 years. SSD's life is 5 years, and then flash disks, its life is 5 years. But the optical devices, these are said to be unlimited, but they don't rely for more time. But DNA is 1,000 plus years. So it means that the moment you will be storing the technology, the data on the technology which is built on the DNA structure, it will help you to store the data for 1,000 years plus. So now moving back to from the data, what we are going to do, we are going to do the analysis or analytics. So there is a little difference between the analysis and analytics, and of course there is intersection between both of them also. So analysis comes from the previous data. When you have data stored into your transactional data, then you analyze the data, and then you get to know that what has happened in past and why it has happened. But advanced analytics or analytics is helping us to predict the future, to predict that from the current patterns, what is happening and what is going to happen. So there is a clear difference between analysis and analytics, the past and the future. Of course, from past trends, you can also predict that what is going to happen in future. So there we will say it, the qualitative analysis. And in advanced analytics, we use machine learning, pattern matching, forecasting, complex event processing, and neural network. These are the pillars of advanced analytics. And traditional methods of analysis cannot be used here. Of course, machine learning is the major driving force for using this. And advanced analytics has various projects. Means I had to discuss about the case studies or some of the case studies. So these are the patterns. These are being used right now. For example, video surveillance. You have heard in yesterday's presentation also that if the CCTV is not only capturing the video, it is doing the real-time surveillance and checking that what is happening and what is going to happen. For example, if there is a crowd, is that crowd going to do something? It will predict and it will give you result. For example, if a person wants to do a robbery, or there is a project which is being implemented in some of the countries that in ATM, people were looting the people on the gunpoint. So if a gun is taken out from or a person is planning to take the gun from his pocket, so it will immediately trigger so many actions and the person will be caught. So this is how the advanced analytics is helping various sectors. But I must say about healthcare, because yesterday also people were asking how Industry 4.0 is going to help human, how we are going to get the benefits from there. In fact, the healthcare industry is the most important industry where it can really help the human itself. As we can see, life expectancy in different countries is different. In Oman, it's different. In Asian countries, it's different. In European countries, it's different. Why? It's because of the lifestyle, it's because of their genes, and it's because of the facilities which is available and medical facilities which is available. As I mentioned, that predictive analytics is helping us to predict what is going to happen. Similarly, it can help and predict that what diseases we are going to have, and it is helping us to do the customized medication. Right now, if there is a person having diabetes problem or the heart problem, doctors are giving him one type of medication, and that is universal. Everybody gets the same medication. But this is not right, because it doesn't fit every medicine doesn't fit everyone. So customized medication concept is coming because of this big data analytics. And on real time, all these sensors. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, why you are wearing the fitness sensor. So fitness sensor is tracking our activities, our heart rate, our SpO2, even the sugar and blood pressure also is being tracked by these sensors. And on real time, this is sensing our environment also, where we are living, our physical, our biological, and our genomics. So genomics, I will explain further, but let me show you the landscape of advanced analytics. This is how our fitness trackers, our healthcare data, our hospitals, all are connected together to get the information about a person. Now, we were yesterday talking about the data governance and whether data should be public or not. In fact, the Ministry of Health or Healthcare Department should think about integrating all the hospitals, private and government hospitals, to share their data together, so that if I visit one hospital and tomorrow I visit another hospital, all my health data should be shared within the hospitals so that I can get a better treatment. And not only this, because if genome sequencing it's going to happen, so then there will be nothing to be hidden from one hospital to another or to the insurance companies. So genome has the data, our DNA or our genome has data, and how the big data has helped it, that genome sequencing was not very fast, and these technologies have emerged. High performance computing, storage devices, storage data, all these have emerged in such a way that we are able to now sequence the genome very fast. Now you can see that back in 2001, only 40,000 genomes were sequenced, but in 2025, tens of billions genome will be sequenced. Of course, I'm not from healthcare section, but this was of my interest, and I felt that you will be also interested in knowing about how it can really help us as human. We are talking about machines, but what about the human? Are they going to take the benefit from the Industry 4.0? And you can see that the DNA sequencing, the cost of DNA sequencing, which was Moore's actually predicted that its cost is going to be that, but right now its cost is more than $0.1, which is very less. In fact, you can get your genome sequenced in just $100, and you can get to know that who you are and what you are. And these are the companies who are already doing genome sequencing, and they can tell you your ancestors. They can do the ancestors analysis, and it is happening right now. Of course, most of the companies are doing it. But my concern is not about knowing who you are and what you are. My concern is about healthcare, not about the life science. Healthcare, IBM has the systems which is being implemented in the healthcare department, where based on the genome, we will be able to get to know after genome is sequenced, DNA analysis will be done. Right now, DNA is telling us who we are, but it will tell us also that what diseases we are going to have. Right now, if a patient goes to hospital, doctor will take his tests, test is negative, and then he will recommend another test. By the time he is diagnosed with a real problem, he might it might be too late. But imagine this particular technology is helping, it is predicting before it happens, depending upon your ancestors' data, which is already available in your DNA. So analysis has been, we have been doing it since 70s when business intelligence and business intelligence was there, relational data was there, data warehouse was there. But analytics in 2000 has changed. It has become descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. So this prescriptive and predictive analytics was not there. So this is what has changed because of the big data, and the business people can right now see on real time, they can get the business insights on real time that what is happening, what is going to happen in next few days. Instead of doing forecast, it does the prediction. And there are a lot of things have changed. When I again did my own research to see that since 2017 till now, what has changed? It has really changed a lot. What technologies were available in 2017, it has grew in such a way that we can get the predictive and advanced predictive analytics can really change the whole world. Industry 4.0 has emerged, so big data technologies have also emerged tremendously. This presentation, these slides are from 2017 when I gave the presentation that how Google is helping to predict the pandemic. COVID was not there at that time, but they were already using CDC, Center of Disease Control in USA. They were already using it, that from the search engine patterns, they were able to predict that in which particular area this flu is going to spread. Now, when it spreads from one state to another, they were able to see the trend that, okay, trend is moving from this state to this state. It means that the next state has to be informed before it happens that you start your vaccination, so that when it comes to you, people don't get affected. And this is how the Google, you can see the Google trend is on blue and the CDC actual data is on red. And if you can see that Google predicted that it's gonna be on that peak, but CDC captured actual data and it was less. The reason why it was less was because they took the measures. So how big data helped them to make sure that the pandemic doesn't spike. And we have seen its example right now in 2019, 2020, that these predictive analytics have helped us. These visualization were even available publicly to see that how COVID is spreading and how we can stop it. Now this animated slide is not working, but in fact, the asthma patients are right now having the puff or this device, which can really sense their how many times they are using it and in which area they are using it. And it sends the data on real time to the cloud, and it helps others to, for example, if there are 10 people right now doing puff, so it recognizes the pattern and it informs other people that don't go outside. The outside environment is not good for you as an asthma patient. So they are getting to know all this on real time. And not only this, you can see that on map, they can see where the asthma attack is more, where it means that air is polluted or something is there. Of course, I'm not from health department, so I don't know about it, but anyways, this is how the applications are right now even available. If you know someone who is asthma patient, so maybe you can help them. So I talked about the healthcare, but what about the businesses? Businesses are really right now able to get the help from the big data and advanced analytics in the form of customer service. Customer service has improved a lot. If you're calling the bank right now, be it artificial intelligence, where chatbots or your AI-based customer care, they are helping you, and this is in fact increasing. 30% of the banking revenue has increased because of the customer service based on the AI, and AI is of course based on the big data. And the analysis from the analytics from there. Predictive maintenance, be it predictive maintenance of machines. In the private sector also this can be used. How it can be used, for example, the companies are having, manufacturing companies are having machines, so they can predict when the maintenance is gonna due. And accordingly, they can integrate through low-code platform. It can be integrated to the ERPs, where the purchase order or even the request to the supplier can be made for the replacement of the components. So this all can happen in real time through the predictive maintenance. It can be predictive maintenance of machines, cars, or whatever you name it. Then recommendations, if the business manager wants to invest the money in one product, so system will recommend that not to invest in this product, invest in another product because of the current trends or current patterns. And system optimization for the IT managers or IT workforce, it can also help to optimize the system based on the current patterns. For example, if they are working in e-commerce industry, if the load is more, if the customers are more, so automatically the system can predict it and scale it, upscale or downscale, or elasticity can be improved. And similarly in product development, based on the feedback from the users on real time on social media, Apple and Google, they both are developing the new models of their smartphones. Now, if you see how the smartphones are emerging, back in 2000 when I did not have any phone, 2004 I got my first Nokia, and then every year we are changing. We all are changing one phone to two phones, trying to make sure that we enjoy the benefit from BlackBerry to Microsoft to Android and iOS. And of course, most of them have died, only Android and iOS is remaining. But what I want to mention here, that product development, how it is helping the developers, the product developers, not only smartphones, but all other people who are developing the products. Big data, predictive analytics can help them. Of course, there are challenges. Many challenges are there in the public sector that we have seen yesterday, in ministries we have seen yesterday. They are already working on improving their, the change management is being implemented in all this. But innovation is in public sector is definitely a project that can be implemented. Traffic optimization can be implemented in the private sector. Law enforcement agencies can implement, and crime prediction and prevention. I gave few examples, but there are many examples and many case studies are there that can be used to predict the crime. Personalized citizen experience, and of course, security. The reason why Oman is very popular is because the safety and security. And of course, it can be further improved with the help of the analytics and overall national security when we have AI-based sensors checking who is coming into airport, who is going out. So all this can be done using the advanced analytics. So these were the challenges back in 2017. Till now, there are challenges that, as we have seen, that data science projects right now, 70 to 80% of data science projects fail, in fact. It must be a surprise to you, but 70 to 80% of the data science projects fail. Why it failed? Because we always talk about the return on investment, that if we are going to implement a data science project, what value we are going to get from there, what the benefits we are going to achieve from there. So that becomes a challenge when the project is implemented, the outcome is not there. So that's the reason we say that 80% of the projects fail. And this is the research by Gartner. And 60% of the organizations, they do not support such projects. The management support from the organizations is not there. As we saw that, okay, challenges are there. The information is available, technology is available, but the management is not convinced in most of the organizations. 60% of the challenges are there. But the major problem that we have is the skill set. I say it always, I discussed in one of the colleges here also in last lecture, that skill set is, we are lacking the skill set. Though we say that, okay, workforce, we will, human capital management, as we mentioned, that we have to separate some budget for that so that we can develop the skills of existing employees. But change management has to be adopted. It's very difficult. in the way we have been doing for last 20, 30 years, it is very difficult to mold that. And similarly, as I mentioned in my comment also in my previous presentation, that the universities, colleges or schools, what curriculum they are teaching right now, if they have not changed it, it's obsolete. I was hearing Jack Ma and Canadian Prime Minister also that they are focusing on changing the curriculum of school so that the youth or the child who is studying right now, they will be fit for the industry 4.0 in next 20 years. And they will be able to produce the robots. They will be able to take part in the development of the artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data. Even talk about doctors. Every person means there is a charm that people want to become doctor. But precision surgery or precision heart surgery can be done by AI-based robots. So what will be the role of doctor? Role of doctor is gonna change. It's going to be changed to program that robot or to help that robot to do the precision surgery. So all the fields of life are going to be changed, and that's the reason robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, this has to be taught to every person in the school, colleges and universities. And I must say, if anybody is here from the Ministry of Education, we must start introducing the competitions in the schools, that who has done the AI project, who has done the robotics project. Even the smart from Raspberry Pi, we can start with $30, we can start these robotics projects. And these can be backed by then the edge computing and then the cloud platforms which are available. So there is a lot to discuss. I tried to do it in fast pace. I don't know if I have crossed my time, but
thank you, Amjad. Actually, you have very good presentation skills, I must say that. Thank you so much, Amjad.